Leaked messages have just surfaced, and what they reveal could shake Red Bull to its core. Aston Martin isn't just building a team for 2026, they're planning to dismantle Red Bull from the inside. At the center of this storm is Max Verstappen's own race engineer, a person whose decisions on strategy, setup, and real-time adjustments have helped shape multiple championship wins. If he switches sides, Red Bull's advantage could vanish almost overnight. The leaks suggest Aston Martin isn't acting alone. These messages hint at coordination, planning, and tactics that no other team has dared to attempt, raising questions about who else in the paddock might be quietly involved. And this is just the beginning. Later in the video, we'll uncover details that haven't been reported anywhere else, including potential consequences for Verstappen, Red Bull, and the balance of power in F1 that could change before the first race of 2026 even starts. The paddock is quietly buzzing with a story that hasn't been confirmed officially, yet has already sent shockwaves through the garage corridors of multiple teams. Aston Martin's recent strategic move suggests they are targeting one of the most influential figures in Red Bull's operation, Max Verstappen's race engineer. This is not a mere recruitment, this is a calculated attempt to shift the very balance of power in Formula One. Sources indicate that Aston Martin has approached the engineer for a pivotal role, a position that could allow him to transplant Red Bull's operational excellence into their own organization, fundamentally altering the competitive landscape. Red Bull's internal culture has long been defined by the synergy between Verstappen and his race engineer, whose split-second decisions, car adjustments, and strategy calls have turned tiny margins into multiple championships. Losing such a key figure at this critical juncture when Red Bull is integrating new systems and preparing for the 2026 regulations could destabilize not just the engineering workflow but the very trust network that keeps their team performing at the highest level. The implications extend beyond technical expertise, reaching into psychological cohesion, strategic timing, and driver confidence. Aston Martin's intentions appear methodical and long-term. They have been assembling a core team of high-caliber engineers and technical personnel, creating a foundation capable of rivaling the most dominant teams in F1. Adding Verstappen's engineer to this nucleus would provide them with not just knowledge, but intimate insight into Red Bull's decision-making processes, effectively offering a roadmap to anticipate and counter Red Bull's strategies even before they materialize on track. The engineer's expertise in real-time driver feedback and energy deployment could dramatically accelerate Aston Martin's rise. The timing of this potential move is crucial. Red Bull is mid-transition, integrating new hybrid power units while simultaneously preparing for regulatory shifts in 2026. Any disruption within the team's inner circle could have cascading effects, slowing development, creating communication gaps, and altering the precision timing of strategy execution during races. Industry insiders warn that losing a figure like this at such a sensitive stage could erode the fine-tuned coordination that has made Red Bull almost untouchable, turning subtle disadvantages into critical gaps. What adds to the drama is the engineer's dual role, technical authority and psychological stabilizer. He has been the bridge between Verstappen's instincts and the car's mechanical behavior, translating subjective feedback into actionable data with unparalleled accuracy. The leaked discussions suggest that Aston Martin is attempting to co-opt not just technical knowledge, but this intuitive operational link, an asset that cannot be replicated easily and carries enormous competitive weight. Capturing it could be decisive in leveling the playing field or even tipping it in Aston Martin's favor. The personal stakes are equally compelling. Sources suggest that Aston Martin's offer is tailored to accommodate the engineer's lifestyle and family considerations, making the proposition hard to refuse. Such a combination of professional influence and personal flexibility represents a unique incentive structure that could undermine Red Bull's retention strategy. If this individual were to accept, the effects would be immediate and far-reaching, altering the psychological and operational dynamics of one of the most successful teams in modern F1 history. Finally, the broader context cannot be ignored. Red Bull has already experienced departures of key figures over the past years, including senior strategists and technical experts, which has subtly shifted team dynamics. Adding a potential move of Verstappen's race engineer into that sequence introduces a new variable, one that could reshape not just team operations but race outcomes and championship trajectories for 2026. The paddock watches closely, aware that this story is only partially visible, and that what has leaked is likely just the beginning of a much larger, high-stakes strategic drama. The leaked messages offer more than just confirmation of discussions, they reveal Aston Martin's intent in a way that the official statements do not. Sources suggest the chats outline specific responsibilities the engineer would assume, ranging from race day decision-making to integration of strategic data for 2026 development. The tone of the communication is precise, almost surgical, hinting at a carefully structured approach to acquiring not just technical knowledge, but the operational DNA that has made Red Bull dominant for years. Every line, every meeting reference, points to a broader ambition, to replicate Red Bull's success while simultaneously weakening its internal cohesion. What makes this leak particularly concerning is how it emphasizes timing. The messages coincide with Red Bull's most critical development phase for the 2026 car and engine program. At a moment when every decision, every test run, and every simulation is crucial, the prospect of losing a key operational mind threatens to introduce subtle errors and strategic misalignments. Red Bull's rhythm, once considered untouchable, is now under scrutiny, not by competitors on track, but by the calculated approach of Aston Martin off track. The implications are clear. This is less about a new hire and more about destabilizing a rival's foundation before the next championship begins. The content of the messages also suggests that Aston Martin is aware of the engineer's unique influence over Verstappen. His role has always been more than technical, it's psychological. He interprets driver feedback, translates instinct into actionable adjustments, and orchestrates split-second decisions that can win races. The leaked chats indicate that Aston Martin intends to absorb that capability into their own operation, effectively transplanting Red Bull's human advantage into their own ecosystem. If successful, this move would provide Aston Martin with insights and operational foresight that could leapfrog years of development and strategy building. Sources indicate that the messages highlight both the scope and discretion of the proposed transition. Aston Martin is reportedly emphasizing confidentiality and gradual integration, minimizing disruption while maximizing knowledge transfer. This isn't an abrupt, headline-grabbing acquisition, it's a strategic infiltration aimed at weakening Red Bull's internal communication chains. By the time the broader F1 community perceives the impact, Aston Martin could already be in a position to leverage operational intelligence that Red Bull considered untouchable, turning years of accumulated advantage into a temporary vulnerability. The leak also underscores a subtle, psychological campaign. Beyond the logistical and operational plans, the messages hint at influence tactics designed to secure loyalty, cultivate trust, and encourage a shift in allegiance. Aston Martin appears to be engaging in a slow, deliberate strategy to win over the engineer's commitment before any formal negotiations or contracts are finalized. The methodical nature of this approach implies that the move is intended to be both irreversible and invisible until Red Bull feels its first tangible effects: race day decisions that no longer function with the same precision, or car setups that miss the perfect alignment with Verstappen's instinctive feedback. Moreover, the partial revelation in these chats has already sent ripples through the paddock. While no official protests or statements have been made, insiders report heightened vigilance among rival teams, with some beginning to assess not only the technical implications but the strategic vulnerabilities of Red Bull's operational framework. This creates a second layer of tension. Red Bull is not just defending against Aston Martin. The mere existence of these discussions introduces uncertainty and speculation that could influence decisions across multiple teams, potentially altering preseason strategies for 2026. Finally, the leaked messages only tell part of the story. Many details remain redacted or were never captured in the leak, leaving questions unanswered and possibilities wide open. The gaps are as significant as the information revealed, suggesting that Aston Martin's plan might be even more ambitious than what the paddock currently perceives. The partial information is enough to create unease, but the unknown elements, those that have yet to surface, provide the suspense that keeps both fans and insiders guessing. Red Bull's engineers, management, and Verstappen himself are left navigating a landscape filled with uncertainty, while Aston Martin quietly positions itself to capitalize on every nuance of that uncertainty. The real twist is that Aston Martin's interest in Verstappen's engineer is not an isolated recruitment, it is a deliberate move to disrupt Red Bull's operational core. Sources suggest that the team sees this engineer as more than a technical asset. He is a linchpin in the driver car feedback loop that has kept Red Bull ahead of every rival. By securing his knowledge and influence, Aston Martin could gain insight into Red Bull's decision-making, strategy execution, and even the subtle psychological cues that allow Verstappen to push the car beyond its limits. This is not just hiring, it's a calculated attempt to replicate and neutralize the very system that has dominated F1 for years. Timing amplifies the stakes. Red Bull is simultaneously developing their 2026 power unit and preparing for regulatory changes that could redefine performance parameters. Integrating a new hybrid engine while maintaining championship-level operational efficiency requires absolute cohesion. The engineer in question is central to this process, translating Verstappen's instincts into actionable strategy during both testing and race weekends. A departure now would not only remove expertise but could subtly erode the synchronization that has been key to Red Bull's success. Aston Martin's potential move is therefore positioned to strike at the precise moment when it could have the greatest impact. Beyond the technical and operational implications, there is a psychological dimension. Verstappen and his engineers share a relationship built over years of high-pressure racing. That trust is foundational. It allows split-second decisions to be made with confidence, often determining the outcome of races by margins of milliseconds. If Aston Martin succeeds in enticing him away, Red Bull risks losing more than just skill. They risk breaking the human system that converts instinct into performance. This subtle shift could reverberate through the team, affecting confidence, morale, and strategic fluidity. The leak also hints at a broader strategic network. While Aston Martin is the primary beneficiary, there are indications that other teams may indirectly gain from Red Bull's internal disruption. By creating uncertainty, Red Bull's rivals could exploit moments of hesitation, miscommunication, or minor errors, even without overtly intervening. This situates the engineer's potential move not as a single event, but as part of a larger chessboard of influence that could alter competitive dynamics well beyond Aston Martin's garage. The implications extend across the grid, with every team reassessing the relative strength of Red Bull's operational framework. Moreover, the engineer's knowledge is not only tactical but also developmental. He has been a key figure in shaping Red Bull's approach to car evolution, race day calibration, and performance extraction strategies. By transferring to Aston Martin, he could provide insight into the methodologies, decision-making heuristics, and technical philosophies that have historically given Red Bull an edge. This would allow Aston Martin to accelerate their learning curve exponentially, effectively compressing years of trial and error into a single off-season. It is a move that transforms an individual hire into a structural advantage. The potential fallout is amplified by timing and secrecy. If Red Bull only realizes the depth of this operation after the engineer's transition begins, the team may have limited capacity to adjust. Internal contingencies could mitigate some effects, but the loss of an anchor figure in the driver-engineer relationship cannot be fully replaced overnight. This is why the leak itself is so destabilizing. Even before any official action is taken, uncertainty begins to influence decision-making, strategic confidence, and team cohesion. Aston Martin's approach leverages human factors as much as engineering knowledge. Finally, this twist reframes the narrative of Formula One itself. It is no longer just a battle of machines and track performance. It is a contest of operational intelligence, strategic foresight, and psychological leverage. Aston Martin's potential acquisition signals that the next era may be defined less by who builds the fastest car and more by who can assemble, protect, and extract the human expertise that drives championship-winning performance. The paddock watches closely, knowing that Red Bull's 2026 season could be reshaped not on track, but by a single strategic maneuver executed quietly behind the scenes.